Hello and welcome. I am Talkos from Maniacal Laughter, and tonight we're going to visit Palimpsest by Catherynne M. Valente. One could describe this book as a journey to Wonderland if, instead of following the white rabbit, you had unprotected sex. The wordplay of this book, a lot of books can be described as majestic or epic, but I think the words of this book can only be described as unquestionably beautiful. I'm first going to read you a small passage that describes their journey better than I ever could, and then a few choice passages describing the wonderland that these people find themselves in. To touch a person, to sleep with a person, is to become a pioneer, she whispered then, a frontiersman at the edge of their private world, the strange, incomprehensible world of their interior, filled with customs you could never imitate, a language which sounds like your own, but it really is totally foreign, knowable only to them. I have been so many times to countries like that. I learned how to make coffee in all their ways, how to share food, how to comfort, how to dance in the native ways. It is harder, usually, to find a person who wants to walk the streets of me, to taste the teas of my country, to immigrate, you could say, especially, well, she gestured at her painted throat. Oleg touched her neck, the black lines there, hot and moving slightly with her pulse. I think I would like your country, he said shyly. He said nothing of his own, too full of the dead and the locked. There is a dome, for rain in Palimpsest is like an eager lover, ever present and zealous, streaming with ardor. Under the dome chocolate silk sweeps down from a frame of kaleidoscopic glass, each bar blown in as many colors as a church window. Enormous orange lamps hang like miniature suns, banded up in black chains, and the track of pearls, wheels in its grand circle, ever on. The stands are rarely empty, slavering, pilgrim fervent. The crowd leans forward as one great spangled body to see the poor beast run. Traugot's voice, a copper pan shaken in the wind, sings up from the stalls. He is a breeder of snails, and dwells in a house of 3 stories. In his youth he covered each of the floors in rich soils of black and red, leaves of gold and green, grains brown and sweet, violet petals as thick as a pat of butter. In his middle age, birch and fig saplings sprouted through the kitchen tile. Hedges ring the furniture. His great petit gris slowly move from parlor to wash-closet, gorging themselves in paroxysms of helical rapture. They mate in the chimney, sing softly the hems of snails on the window-sills, when the moon blanches the verdant paint to black. And when the days of races approach, he takes the roundest and sweetest of them into his bedchamber, and a brocaded bed so great it spans the floor entire, so soft he cannot bear to sleep upon it. He lays them down like children. There Traugot instructs his beloveds in an ascetic discipline, a consecrated fast, for the stomachs of men cannot bear very much of what the stomachs of snails contain. He leads them in prayer to the high helix, on her throne of soil, her opalescent flesh bound with sweet grasses, her eye stalks quivering with compassion, with mercy. So Traugot quivers as his jewels perish in purgation and starvation. So Traugot weeps for them as he polishes their shells and packs them into a green valise. And with his bright case, Traugot stalks the stalls, his beard dyed to match the favored mounts of the day, Today it is a spectral scarlet, and children reach out to touch the light of his long hairs, soft as a maid's. He holds up his broad hands, full of little golden snails. They brim the edges, iridescent, the size of a dainty fist. He slurps one slowly, with pleasure, with grief. The taste of them like buttered brandy wine, like sugared goose fat, melts on his tortured tongue. Seeing the bobby of his ruddy, guilty throat, a dozen spectators clamor for his service. And one last one. A house sits squarely on the corner of Krasnolata and Conundrum streets. Over the years it has grown to encompass nearly the whole of both boulevards, up to 19th Street and down to 6th, though the spaces where its cornerstones do not mark the earth. The gardens of this house spill out into the street in long emerald swaths. Beggars sleep beneath the pomegranate trees, and the carriage tracks swerve gracefully to avoid the intruding verdancy. The house itself was planted as a sapling, its roots bound up in muslin and soaked in rose water. 3 women brought it in a pine bucket, stroking its bark to keep it calm. They buried it in secret, hidden by a complicit moon, in the soft earth that was in Krasnolata Street, beneath the underground, before the underground trains and the elevated tracks, before the great spires, before the water-spouting, mice-headed gargoyles bred on that broad road with such zeal. The women wore grey veils and crowns of steel gears. They knew how to conduct rites properly, how to dress, how to stand. They came each night thereafter to feed it and whisper to it. They came silently, with sweet things in their pockets, sugar and apples, and Spanish tiles, and slivers of false crosses, braids from their own head, ivory buttons, golden sewing needles, and the heels of 1,000 Sunday roasts, cherries with pits of hard molasses, faucet heads in the shape of men's mouths, frankincense and myrrh, lion whiskey, long black pokers and swaddling clothes, handbags and hair combs, Christmas cakes, hemlock, lemon tea, and glass goblets, a slaughtered blue sheep, and lastly, but most important, the sad grey form of one of their own sons, who had strangled in his umbilical cord, whose child it was. None of us may tell. All the women were named Casimira. They did not find it confusing. The house, well fed beyond all dreams of cornice and window hinge, began to grow so quickly, and with such vigor, that the houses on either side of it were forced to pick up their prodigious suitcases, and with much pointed sniffling, homestead elsewhere. The house threw up radiant cedar walls and windows of smoky glass. Bronze roof tiles clattered out from the chimneys like dominoes falling. Palisades and sweeping stairs twisted up from the earth, and long hallways stretched their arms for children to hide in. It opened room after room like blossoms, each furnished in a single color, for it was an orderly house, and liked things just so. It set up 8 floors to begin with, and more sprouted with the harvest each year. It peaked and gabled its tiled roof, and threw towers into the air. At night, passer-by heard the house singing little nonsense songs to itself as it dressed up. A girl, waiting with restless hope for a festival to begin. Thank you for listening. That has been Palimpsest by Catherynne M. Valente. I hope you enjoyed. It's definitely a book that I think you should pick up, if only to read the description of that wonderful world that she introduces us to. Again, this has been Talkos from Maniacal Laughter, and I'll talk at you later.